Accelerating innovation in ICTs for transformative growth. What role does open and neutral internet access play in the innovation ecosystem?
Welcome back. I heard the school bell. It reminded me of, gave me some good and bad memories, I think, that bell. Thanks for sticking with us. This is one of 3 parallel sessions that are going to be drilling down on different aspects of the conversation that started with the last panel. And this panel is drilling down on how do we accelerate innovation for transformative growth everywhere in the world, not just in the places where the innovation started or where the internet started. We've got a really great panel here. We agreed beforehand. I was told that I should not try to massacre everyone's surnames, so we're going to be on a first name basis. But we have Torbjörn who is the chief the chief of ICT analysis section at UNCTAD. The UN, I'm always forgetting exactly how to spell out this UN agency. That's right. Then we have Lukonga, who's a co-founder and director of BongoHive, and he's going to be talking about technology hubs. We have Sascha, who is Vice President of the New America Foundation and Director for the Open Technology Institute in Washington, D.C., and a colleague of mine. We have Nnenna, who is a co-founder and development advisor of FOSSFA, and you can tell us what that stands for, but it's a free and open software foundation, and Maja from InfoDev, which is with the World Bank. And all of them are going to be talking about different aspects of how we drill down in innovation and really make it happen. And to frame the conversation, I'd like to start with Torbjörn over there to the far end. How do we make ICT really work for development? Where is the innovation happening? Where are the opportunities the greatest? How do we foster opportunities? How do we ensure that the innovation of the next phase of the internet's growth, particularly when most of the adoption is now happening in the developing world, that the innovation is equally coming from the developing world, and the opportunity to shape how the internet evolves just generally is, as much given to people in the developing world as it is to the developed world.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It was a very good panel this morning, so I think to follow up nicely on from that. I think an important thing to stress from the outset when we talk about how ICTs can contribute to development is to really first define what development objectives we have here. We have so far had a very strong focus on the internet. And of course, the ICT landscape is very diverse, reaching everywhere from radio, TVs, all the way to mobile phones and computers and the internet and broadband. And depending on what we're trying to achieve, different uses of ICTs are necessary, I think. And UNCTAD focuses very much on the economic aspects of ICT for development. And we did a study, for instance, 2 years ago on how ICTs can support private sector development in developing countries. And it was striking that when you go through the various strategies that exist from donors, from multilateral agencies and so on, and on how to promote enterprise development, very often the ICT dimension is not really there, or only a certain aspect, maybe that you need infrastructure, or that you see that you can make it easier for enterprises to get started if you have an online registration procedure and so on and so forth. So we basically identified a certain number of areas where ICTs can make a difference. And it varies a lot depending on if you're talking about a small micro enterprise in a rural village in Africa, or if you're talking about an urban, medium-sized enterprise. ICT can make a big difference for all of these, but they will be different solutions. So I think an important point is to really put first, improve the understanding on what the needs and capabilities are, and then start thinking about what solutions that there could be. But if you think about the aspect of innovation now, I think one area that is very, very crucial in this area is related to software and content development, and where I think we have today drastically improved opportunities to promote innovation in also low-income countries, and for a number of reasons. One of the big challenges has been to promote innovation in the area of ICTs in the past has been a lack of demand. Very few companies have been active users of computers and the internet in the low-income countries. But in the past few years, very much on the back of the mobile revolution, we have seen new markets emerging, not least for mobile applications. We have also seen improved internet connectivity, broadband connectivity. That makes it possible today for local programmers to participate in national software development over online platforms like Odesk and Elance and so on. According to Elance, they have about 150 countries involved in their online work right now, which is pretty amazing when you consider how outsourcing used to be undertaken, with a few developing countries led by India, the Philippines, and a few others, where you had outsourcing between a big American company and a fairly big developing country firm. Now it's more on a one-to-one basis. The opportunities are there for revenue creation, and in addition, you have, thanks to the mobile app revolution, a growing demand from the local economies for apps development that respond to the local needs and demands. So I think these are a few things that we can capitalize on by working together in a multi-stakeholder approach, where the governments have a role to play, the private sector has a clear role to play, but also like the software developer communities, the IT association, and so on and so forth, can really contribute into this picture.
Moving on to Lukonga, tech hubs. Is the innovation, I'm interested to get a better understanding too of what is driving the innovation, how the tech hubs get set up, how they get funded, how you make them happen, who's participating in them, and what the challenges are.
All right, so I'm representing BongoHive and AfriLabs as well. AfriLabs is a network of just over 16, I think close to 20 innovation spaces in Africa. And what we find, and from our own experiences, just 2 weeks ago we were in Berlin, sponsored by GIZ, we had our first physical meetup. What you find is that there are different models and reasons why the tech hubs started. But I think what is common amongst all of them is that we are motivated by just building the tech communities. I think with experience over the past few years, some of us who maybe had lived outside our countries and come back and found that really we could not collaborate with our own comrades, our friends, and we could not build businesses together. I think these challenges then motivated us to build these physical spaces where we could meet together, learn together, collaborate, and really have access to all these other opportunities that we couldn't have if we were just working as individuals. If I was to explain a bit about BongoHive, how we started, we sought funding to start BongoHive, but it was difficult to get funding, and so we just started. And that's the story of BongoHive. 2 years ago, we just started training each other in one small room. And now we have funding from Google, and we have a local ISP, which is the biggest ISP, which is now giving us internet. And I think that from our experience and from the many other experiences of the tech hubs, it's really, there's a need, and my colleague there has explained all these factors, the mobile revolution, the fact that the internet has become cheaper and more accessible, and now we are looking at creating content, creating applications, creating solutions that are relevant to the local market. Yeah. So
moving on to Sascha, one of the many things you work on is this question that several people brought up in the last panel, which is affordable access and equitable access and the need for alternative models to the sort of large ISP dominated, you get whatever hand happens to have been dealt to you depending on where you live and what the ISP situation happens to be in that market, and how people sort of are starting to get around these challenges in different ways. I'm wondering if you can talk about that.
Sure. Thanks, Rebecca. So, in my regular life, is this on? It's coming on? There we go.
There we are.
So in my regular life, a lot of my work involves educating White House, Hill critters, FCC, other government officials. That's traditionally what a think tank does. But the Open Technology Institute is also a technology research and development arm of the Foundation's work. And one of our key projects, one of our pilot projects, is something called Commotion. It's popularly known as the Internet in a Suitcase. And if any of you have or are at this moment in time using your cell phones or your laptops or et cetera, this is a technology that has the potential to dramatically impact your life. Commotion is designed, it's supported to provide secure communications. It's provide encrypted communications, it's to provide anonymizing technologies, and to interconnect these devices. So in this room, there's got to be about 4 million of these devices, given how many each of you are probably carrying at this point in time. And that can create a local area network. This is incredibly important when you're talking about communications in some of the world's hotspots, where government surveillance, monitoring, censorship is rife. But it's also incredibly important if you want to bring low-cost communications. It's important because all of a sudden you can offload a lot of the text messaging, a lot of the information flow, a lot of the data flow, a lot of the voice calls to a local area network. So the technologies we're developing allow for things like free phone calls in a local area network, free texting, sharing of connectivity that exists, delay-tolerant communications, i.e. I take a photo, it gets pushed into the network, and even if my camera is taken away from me, as soon as somebody on that network can get online, that media can be pushed out. Now, these local area networking services and applications, unto themselves, are incredibly transformative. But what they're also doing is then creating new business models, opportunities for people to design and build local community networks, regional networks, entire multi-hundred, multi-thousand square kilometer networks to provide connectivity in places that are underserved or have no service whatsoever. And in essence, what this does is it forces the evolution of existing business models that right now are failing, right? We talk about, we've got 1 to 2 billion people online. Well, let me tell you, the business models, the cost points for people to get online using those business models is far too high for the lower 2, maybe 3 quintiles of the entire human populace. So for us to succeed in creating a globally interconnected humanity, we need a different business model, and that's what this is the beginning of, creating that opportunity. So it'll disrupt existing business models that fail to evolve. It'll force the evolution of business models from forward-thinking folks and businesses, and it'll create space for a whole new generation of entrepreneurs that want to design, build local networks, want to build services and applications we haven't even dreamed of yet. So this is not just a science fiction piece that I'm talking about. This is actually quite concrete. Anyone right now today can go to the commotionwireless.net website, download the beta. We're actually coming out with a new version of that beta that has some bug fixes within the next week, and you can play around with it. It's all open source, it's all freely available, and it's there for anyone that wants to make use of it.
Nnenna, you're a businesswoman, and the key, as we've been hearing, is the ability of people in local communities to innovate and to actually have ownership of their innovation and to be able to develop it and get funding and not just have their ideas stolen by sort of other companies or that kind of thing. And what are your observations about the kind of environment necessary for entrepreneurship to succeed at the local level and to really innovate and create some of these things that Sascha described as, you know, the next generation of innovations that nobody has quite dreamed of yet? And how do we get these innovations to be coming out of Africa, elsewhere in the developing world?
Thank you. I think, like Lukonga said, we normally begin business from either our parents' sitting rooms or from the hostels, from very tiny places. One of the challenges have been with initial education we receive in college. When you go to college, you say, I want to read, I'm enrolled in computer science or something. Either you are taught products of a company or you are taught the basics. So when you graduate, you now find out you really don't know anything about the business itself, about how things work. The other thing is, in this innovation, IT innovation, we live and eat and dream and sleep internet connection. So without a broadband access, you will not survive. I mean, yes, I'm an internet addict. I have no problem. I don't know if they have started rehabbing people, no. But basically, if I have only money for one thing, I'll pay internet connection. And that's how I've come to know that I'm an internet addict. So I pay for internet connection before I pay for food. When I arrive at a place, I check out the internet connection before I check out the room. That's my life. That's the life of an infotechpreneur. I'm not a businesswoman, I'm an infotechpreneur. Now, the other thing is, once you have the internet, now you need the networks. You need to know who knows who, because over in West Africa, the procurement is not very clear. I'm not saying government is not clear, I'm saying procurement in business, in many places, is not very clear. So I need to know you so that you can introduce me to the person who knows the person. Then even when we finally get to who knows who, and when we finally get in front of the people who make the market share decisions, we do not have that level playing ground. There seems to be a kind of belief that techies from who need a plane, who need a flight to arrive in country are better than techies at home. Like they said, a prophet is not recognized in his own country. And so I had to move out of Nigeria and go and live in some other country so I can get business in Nigeria. Yeah, and then I arrive and I speak French and they pick me up in a VIP car and later on they said, but your name sounds Nigerian. I said, yeah, but you needed an international expert. If I were in Nigeria, you wouldn't hire me. So there are very tiny subtleties, you know, about. I mean, guys from Africa, you know, you meet our ministers. We need to travel out of the country to be able to meet the minister, okay? He's going to a conference. As a business person, you buy a ticket because you know when he meets you outside of the country, then you become someone important. But if you're at home asking for a rendezvous, for a meeting, guy, you're going to do 2-3 months, you won't get to see that guy. So buy a ticket, meet him in London, put on an air, and then say that you have a company, and then you are an international expert, and all of a sudden you get his attention. So these are very tight. We know that, don't we? And we get around. We get around. But I want to end up by saying that the internet and open source they are children of the same parents. 10 years ago when we were starting FOSSFA, which means the Free Software and Open Source Foundation for Africa, people will look at us and like, who will ever make money from free software? We're like, we will get there. And between then and now, People like me, I live in my own place. I have a few things. I'm worth a couple of change. I'm not poor. I don't think I am. And I have a family that I take good care of. So I may not be successful, but I'm comfortable. I am not a candidate for immigration. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I want to go home. I have work. I have hope. I have opportunities. So I'm happy as an open source infotechpreneur. Some guys have made more money than me, but I'll get there one of these days. So watch out, you'll hear more of me.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next. We're all going to be following closely. So last but not least, let's go to Maja before we sort of open it up. And also, it looks like that I've seen over your shoulder. There's some interesting Twitter conversation as well. So we want to get into that. So Maja, you sort of again coming back up to the bird's eye view and looking at kind of where the innovation is happening and why, and what seems to be working, what isn't working. What's your perspective?
I think it's apparent from this panel, and especially from Lukonga's and Nnenna's interventions, that the poles of technology innovation in the world are changing, and the assumption that we somehow need to transfer technology from north to south is just no longer valid, and it's something that has become invalid over the last 5 to 10 years to the extent that it's happened. And technology has and is continuing to democratize access to cutting-edge research and knowledge, and there are strong innovation centers in what one might call a developing country today. So you have wonderful examples of technologies that are only available, or innovations that are originating in, for example, Africa. So there is, for instance, a Senegalese tablet and smartphone app produced by a company called Extreme Senegal. It starts with an X. I recommend looking it up. It's aimed at international travelers who can get off their flight, touch their smartphone to a poster at the airport, instantly download the app, check into their hotel, find their shuttle, and then as soon as they're in the hotel, they can set up the media environment in the room as well as the temperature and the lighting. They can then translate all of the menus and any hotel information into their language, whether it's Chinese or English or French. And this is something that I have never seen it in any hotel in the US or Canada or anywhere, and they are rolling it out. It's being tested right now at Novotel Dakar, and they have signed up with a hotel development company to integrate this into 100 new hotels that will be built across the continent over the next 20 years. Another example is Spinlet, which was a Finnish music distribution platform that was acquired by a Nigerian venture capital fund and is now growing steadily and distributing Nigerian music all over the world. They've dubbed it Africa's iTunes. Of course, if you think of mobile money, the first place everybody looks to, whether you're in the UK or in the US or anywhere else, is Kenya, where M-Pesa has made it possible and practical for everyone, no matter what kind of phone they have, to make simple mobile payments and to do mobile banking. There is a Ghanaian company called Seya Mobile, and they are a strong competitor to WhatsApp. They have acquired millions of users over a period of less than a year and have been featured in TechCrunch, and they're making their rounds. So we're not, I guess my point is we're not talking about the North coming to teach or bring innovations from the North to the South. We are now talking about real cutting-edge innovation that's happening in the South, and the market is global.
You had something you wanted to say before we...
I'd like to come in on that one. I think I agree to the most part of what you say, that there's much more innovation happening now in the South, in Africa. But we should not sort of dismiss this north-south aspect at the same time. And there's no doubt that there's a lot of knowledge, not of technology development, innovation happening in the north that can still benefit the south. But what is really key is that we start developing faster, accelerate the development of capabilities and innovation capabilities, production capabilities in the African and other developing countries, so that they are more able to adopt, adapt, and improve on innovations that also take place elsewhere. And that's what I think is so fascinating with the software world now, that you have much more peer-to-peer development of software applications, increasingly based on open source, which really makes it possible to have much more inclusive development work, bridging the north and the south in this area. So we can have south-south, we can have south-north, we can have north-south. And that's really a game changer that we're seeing now. Very much thanks to the improved connectivity in the world, I think.
Sure. Anything from Twitter to report? I think it might just kind of come on once you start talking.
Yeah, first of all, to all you watching online, remember you can ask questions using the hashtag session2b. And session 2b goes for all you participants as well. There are some people talking about what kind of innovation we're talking about. Tanka says innovation in ICT should be directed to empower grassroots people to access internet and participate in development network. So what kind of innovation are we talking about when we're talking about innovation in this context? Maybe you can comment on that.
Excellent question.
I think that's a very important question, and I'm tweeting here that necessity is the mother of invention. And everyone knows that Africa has problems. And I'm thinking that problems are opportunities for inventors. In Sweden, you wouldn't think that the person who has developed an application for registering the birth of a child is an innovation. Because most of the people here, by the way, childbirth is going down in Europe. I don't know if you're making love enough, I can't say, but population growth is on its way down. But in Africa, population growth is up, and not all of these people give birth at clinics and hospitals. So for someone in Africa, one of the younger people in Cote d'Ivoire, and I think in many places, who have developed an SMS-based application that can register that my wife has just given birth to a baby boy at home, and send it to a centralized point so that 2 weeks later, or whenever the father has time, they can go and send the name of the child and pick up a birth certificate. That is huge. That is innovation in a very simple way that solves a problem. So when we're talking innovation, it's not big nuclear science. These are everyday issues. The tiny, simple things that remind you, as a woman, that your period is coming pretty soon. So begin to save up your money to buy a pad. It's as simple as that. That tiny application that will tell a farmer that you don't take your product to this place on this day, take it to this place. That is innovation. Innovation is these simple technical things that make life worth living.
That's a great definition. Sascha, you wanted to say something?
Sure. So I was just going to comment on, we're entering this 21st century looking towards digital technologies as a liberator for so many people on the planet. And there's a dark side to a lot of this, especially around issues of innovation. Digital feudalism has a number of different facets, and in many ways, innovation through acquisition has become the new MO, especially of digital technologies. And so the dark side is that you can end up with lots of innovations being developed, not in Europe, not in North America, but elsewhere, but then being subsumed under the business models of companies that are not located in the locales where those technologies were developed. And within that context, which is very real, it's normative today, open source is this sort of inoculant against that form of hegemony. And so one of the reasons why open source development becomes so critically important is because it helps prevent an outcome, an inadvertent outcome, whereby people get locked more and more into technologies that don't meet their need. It enables people to continue to innovate and have ownership over those innovations in places where the initial MO might be, okay, sell out, get some funding in, but give away the technology to somebody else.
Lukonga, what does innovation mean for you?
I think for us, it's the intersection of the different stakeholders and being able to come up with something that fits in the right context. In Tech Hubs, it's not just about geeks, it's not about software developers, it's not about policymakers only. It's about bringing the different players together in one room. A hackathon is a good example. I have an app on my phone right now, which is available on the Play Store. And when you get to Zambia, you can use it as a survival tool to translate from English to 7 of the local languages. Google doesn't do that. It's not available. But we created an app that does that. How we did that, we invited a couple of people from Peace Corps. We had a couple of developers in the room, and we developed that over 2 days. That doesn't happen anywhere else in Zambia or in Africa. Tech hubs are places where people are finding solutions to problems that actually exist, and they're not just thinking of them in their bedrooms or garages, but they're actually interacting together and co-creating. And that's, I think, the other aspect of innovation you should understand from a tech hub perspective. Yeah.
Questions, comments? We have a hand. We have a mic.
Indeed, I'm Mike. Hi. I'm Mike Woźniak from the Free and Open Source Software Foundation in Poland. I'm very happy to hear about the Free and Open Source Software Foundation for Africa. I agree with a lot what has been said in the panel. I am very happy that open source is being used as a word, as a phrase, as a philosophy here in this context. I agree with the problem of dark side. I believe that this is one of the biggest issues right now. We can talk about, I mean, I agree that it's extremely important to bring connectivity to Africa and other places where connectivity is still a problem. But on the other hand, I believe we really should work and think what to do about the fact that when you have this connectivity already, we have a situation where we start seeing problems with connectivity within the internet. We start seeing things like walled gardens, like Twitter, Facebook, Google. When you have a Twitter account and your friend has a Facebook account, you cannot talk. One of you will have to set up a second account. This is not interoperability. This is not open internet. This is walled gardens. These are different, this is a different world which we are going full speed into, and I believe it's a huge problem. Let's just think about what Google just did about deciding to switch off XMPP in their chat. This is a very dangerous move, in my opinion, because what's next? Will Google switch off HTTP in their services because they have SPDY, and everybody, quote unquote, uses Chrome, right? So I think we should think about this also while we're thinking about free and open internet. And the question is to the panelists: do you agree with this, and do you also see that as a problem? Because I haven't heard that being said from any stage here. So my question is it being seen as a problem? Thank you.
Who wants to get that first?
I would love to talk on that. I mean, this is,
Shoot,
you know,
I'll come after you.
my bias, of course, is, I run the Open Technology Institute, so you can imagine what I'm about to say. But again, the dominant business model when it comes to digital technology on the planet today is vendor lock-in, creating path dependencies, creating these walled gardens, these ecosystems that you can't get out of. Anyone that has ever attempted to work with people around the globe on a shared document understands the pain of Microsoft products. And every time you finally get this interoperability, which is crucial, what does Microsoft do? They create a new non-interoperable standard that it doesn't even interoperate with old versions of Microsoft Office. I mean, this, on the one hand, seems crazy, but it is absolutely the MO that is followed by the largest companies on the planet today. And it is an enormous danger. I would love to see the econometric analysis of what this costs society writ large, because it's got to have profound implications in lost productivity. It's got to have profound costs associated with this that are externalized to the profits of these companies, but absolutely impact all of us in our everyday work. And again, I mean, my bias is towards the open technology is a solution to that dark side. What we're facing right now is this ever-increasing Faustian bargain. We haven't even gotten into like health IT, right? Millions of people die every year because we can't get information that's in their medical record to the people that need it to save their lives. To me, that's absurd that we're killing millions of people because we would rather not mandate interoperability of medical records and first responders. Like, that is a huge detriment to society writ large, and it's something that I work every day to explain to key decision makers, because addressing this problem is going to only become more and more important over time.
Nnenna, I mean, should government be requiring interoperability? Is that one solution? Or what is the solution?
Interoperability is the word hidden behind transparency, openness, and once again, democracy. Because when the government feels that I've been elected, I'm in office for the development of my people, the thinking is different. In Africa, it's been a battle. I'm trying to measure my words so that I don't get angry on stage.
It's okay.
We have been severely disappointed by promising governments who say one thing and do the other, because there is a strong lobby, and when people are presented with opportunities for themselves at the detriment of the people and taxpayers' money, they accept certain contracts. And as Sascha has said, these are lock-ins. It's not just 2-3 years lock-in. Sometimes they go as much as 10 years. And we have seen a lot of this in Africa. But I have a hope. Government is still the biggest spender on IT, but now the greater users are no longer government. And in that, I have hope. I'll give you a quick example. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. It's about 160, 170 million now. And there used to be Facebook, which was the biggest platform that had the most Nigerians, but that has changed. The biggest social media network in Nigeria, you may not have heard about it, it's called ToGo, T-G-O. Very simple technology, text-based, by Africans, and it has more users in Nigeria than Facebook. Simple, short, people love it. So I think it may be wrong to believe that technology comes from the west to the south. No, there has been technology coming from the south to the west as well. And I want to close by saying that Microsoft, IBM, whoever, I don't really want to pick on a company, I think we are moving from software as product, software to software service, and to the cloud, which means that for companies who believe that text editing and image editing software are their mainstay, I'm very sorry for them. If you work for them, start looking for work elsewhere, because that is growing. So the bigger use of technology is technology to enhance people and not enhance products and administration. We still know that our government spent millions of dollars buying technology we don't need or technology we already have. We will keep speaking against it, because such money, we can use it for internet connection, we can use it to enable citizens. But then I am convinced that as long as they are individuals, we're not looking as infotechpreneurs, we're not looking for millions of dollars. We are looking for half a dollar every week from 1,000, 100,000 people. That's all we need. And that's where innovation is going. Huge markets, there'll be few of them, but small, tiny markets that will serve a greater population. That is what we are looking at. Lukonga was saying something that speaks your language. I don't see big industrialists doing this for Africans. I mean, Anamasu Igbo wihem naso, onyo chaga abia wamnya. That's my language. You can't teach me my language. I can do things in my language that Torbjörn you can't do, no matter how good UNCTAD is. I mean, I know the backside of Abidjan. I can tell you where good food is made. Google can't do that. Okay? Google can't tell you, can't give you an app that warns you of dangerous streets. Because Google does not live where I live. I know there, I've been there. So that is the kind of innovation we want to put. Something human, something you can put a face to. And that's where I'm looking for. Open source, we've been there, we've learned the lessons, but we're moving forward into open technology and human technology.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the areas, to build on what you said about the government being a big spender on IT. I mean, this is very often the case that in many developing countries, it is the biggest spender on IT and IT services. And oftentimes, the people in charge of public procurement, they have no mandate, they have no responsibility to promote local ICT sector development or IT sector development, which makes it very difficult sometimes for the local IT companies to actually bid on tenders in this area. One of the first things there is to really establish some kind of communication between the different parts of the government that are dealing with public procurement and IT sector development, but also to establish a dialogue between the government sector and the IT sector, because oftentimes there is a lot of mistrust between the private sector and the government going both ways. And here we can see that there is quite a lot of opportunity in this area that has not really been fully exploited to date in Africa and elsewhere. I think, again, open source comes in very strongly, because if the government starts using open source in their systems, it really opens the gate for local participation. I think in this context, the experience of South Korea is very interesting, where they had developed the eGov frame. It's completely open source, it's completely open in terms of development, and it has been done not only to make their public procurement of this area and the interoperability of the systems throughout the government more effective, but they're also adding special efforts to build the capabilities of the IT SMEs in Korea to become better able at competing for this kind of projects. I think it's a very interesting case.
Right. Maja, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to mention South Korea as well, and a number of other countries who promote locally developed IT solutions, including Singapore and Taiwan, the US to some extent. The government of the District of Columbia, in fact, sources most of their IT locally, and it's a kind of continued investment in technology that originates in the country.
So we have somebody over here, yeah?
Hello, everybody. I'm Wilfred Warioba from Tanzania. I work for the Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance. Currently, we have an SMS system which allows citizens to submit their complaints to the commissions. Thanks, Spider, they saw a problem and they decided to help us by supporting us. What is happening in Africa, a lot of developing countries who are supporting us, they don't know Africa. Talking about the experience in Tanzania, when I started the work at the Commission, we wanted to build a system that a case management system. When we asked for assistance, what we were given, the answer that we were given that we cannot get support because they mentioned the system that are existing from north. And this is the idea that is happening, discouraging innovation from the countries that they need the solutions by giving the solution from the north. I was told that I could use IBM case flow, I think it's document flow system. But I said we need a case management system I was told another system that they're existing that can do the same, but they're not similar. Because when you implement those systems that are coming from North and you try to practice them into our system, you find a lot of time that they are totally different. They don't work for us. So, and even though the solution that we have is not exactly what we have, because we are depending on the finance that are coming from North, these are developing countries, that we are forced to advertise those jobs, and then because there are no industries or developers in the country that they have experience, because if you look at the World Bank, the criteria for selecting a company, you may be told that you must have 18 years experience or 7 years experience, which we believe none of the organizations in Tanzania, they have those experiences. You may be told that you have turnover of certain billions. You may find that there is none of the company in the country that will have that. So the chances is you are giving us the money that should go back to your countries. And that is not fair for the organization that are working in Africa and to solve the situation in Africa. Let me just tell you, highlight the situation in the country. You may find that you can take a plane now, you want to go to New York, you may get there. But from one village, if you want to go from one village to another, it is maybe the same time from Sweden to New York to get from one village to another in the region there. So you don't know this from Google. You don't know how difficult the roads will be. You see, so the people who are living there, they can tell you exactly what is happening, but they need to participate fully. But when you are coming with a solution from your countries to bring it to our countries, they don't assist us. And to you, it's just to say, yo, we have already supported that. You put it in the ticking list that we supported this country. It didn't work because they are not committed. No, it is not the solution for us. It's not that we are not committed. So what I can advise for developing countries to sit, like I like to mention Sweden. It's not that I'm here in Sweden, but I like their solution. They tell you, tell us what you want to do, and tell us how you can do it. If they agree with that, they give you the fund or support. But other countries, they give you the solution from others, which they don't work out. I think if we put this in mind, Africa will not be late in the 21st century. It will be the same as Europe. Thank you.
That's a really important point, the solutions being imposed by funders and donors and investors rather than asking what the recipients of the aid or the investment want to do or feel is most appropriate.
Could I also
responses here?
weigh in just very briefly on this? I mean, so I get to live this a lot when it comes to what's called television white space. These are the unused frequencies of television, the stuff that would be snow on your screen. And there's in some ways, Africa and other places, they have this detriment. They have a lack of television broadcasting in a lot of these areas. And you can flip that. Now you all of a sudden are looking at a tremendous resource, these unused frequencies that can be utilized for broadband connectivity. And in the United States, I've been fighting since 2004 on this issue to liberate these spaces and repurpose them for affordable broadband. Now, I've gone to Africa several times now and talked with ministers and et cetera there and said, look, you have this tremendous unused resource. You could leapfrog ahead of Europe, of North America, immediately. You don't have to clear the space. It's just unused in a lot of these areas. And what I get consistently, time and time and time again, is we're waiting for America or United Kingdom or Europe or somebody else to take the lead before we do. And so I also want to say, we need bold leadership in these places, in these spaces, in these governments to say, look, we have this resource. We can deploy now. We should deploy now. We should leap ahead.
Lukonga, do we need more leadership locally?
Yeah, and expertise as well. From my experience, I've worked for NGOs for about 5 years, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but I know that things are changing a lot. We sit and discuss with World Bank and UNICEF and big players but how they can use local expertise. It doesn't happen overnight. There's not enough local expertise, but I think small project by small project, things are changing. The perception, I think, from the donor community is that they can help in building capacity in the local tech communities. And tech hubs are really helping that. I know, for example, at IHub in Kenya, as they have a consulting division which basically pulls together the top talent in the community and works on big projects for big organizations. So that's one strategy to improve local tech community, the capacity within the community. But also we need enough success stories. We can't just complain that the donors are not giving us projects. Sometimes it's a case of not having delivered before and having a bad record, and that works against most companies and startups in developing countries. Yeah.
I'll be tweeting a link, Good. I'll be tweeting a link on ICT innovation that Torbjörn knows a bit about. This is a project that FOSSFA did over 4 years with the GIZ, the German International Development Organization. And all through that time, I was FOSSFA chair. And one of the lessons I've learned is that it will be there is a responsibility on those who are receiving project partnership. You must look beyond the time that the project will end, from day one. You cannot sit and put all your innovation life in the hands of the project partner, because they can either go for 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. So you must plan for a follow-up on the first day of the project. So what did we do? We did trainings in several regions in Africa, and while the trainings were still ongoing, we started deploying. So by the time the project had ended, we already had people making money and taking it up. So I'm not sure if I'm qualified to give advice here. I would say always target sustainability of individuals. Yes, during that project, I had to tell GIZ off on different occasions because we didn't agree, but they go around, they will come back to me because I was seated at the head of FOSSFA anyhow. But now people have seen that I had been tagged Iron Lady in those days, but now the same people who called me Iron Lady are the same people who come back and call me Mommy Africa, because now they are making money from all of that hardlining. So it's important that we invest in people in a sustainable way so that when the project ends, we will have people take it up and develop it as a market for themselves. So don't be there and work on a project. I hate that project idea because, I mean, you are going to come. This man is living in Sweden. He says, I'm going to Africa. He's there for 2-3 years, and he's going to go back home. But you are there, and you stay at home. So you need to begin to plan on how to extend this by yourself, where you are, to make your own money. And let it be a source of business. So a project, I think also in the minds of many donors, is a push for you to be able to establish yourself. It's not something for you to sit and just wait to be taken care of. No, I don't believe that.
What are people saying on Twitter about all this? It'll come on.
Okay. They're picking up on a lot of things. For example, innovation. Adam says innovations need to be sustainable. What can you tell us about sustainable business models in this context? Also picking up on sustainability that Nnenna was talking about. And Ula asks whether Nigeria's biggest social network to go is open source, or are we doing the same mistakes as we used to?
Is it open source? To go, is it open source?
I don't live in Nigeria, so I'm not practicing to go now. And it's already fully, I should think, but I need to find out. I just tweeted a link. To go is already fully booked, and now we have 3 go. So I think that the possibility, the fact that it's been easily migrated into another platform that is interoperable might be telling me something, but I must find out. I must find out. And the fact that it is platform independent and text-based tells me it should be taken from the same couch that we used to do pings and stuff, because it's very lightweight. Yes, it's very lightweight and easy. So I see signs of openness, but I must find out. I don't have that answer right away.
We had a hand over here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dorothy Okello from Uganda, founder of Women of Uganda Network, an NGO promoting the use of women and ICTs, and also a lecturer with the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. So I have an interest in both the infrastructure and the human side of ICT. And when I think about the topic of innovation, I really want to, first of all, support what Sascha is saying, that there's a lot of opportunity around community wireless networks and other networks that will enable affordable use of ICTs. And I agree with you that sometimes pushing it through to our various governments may be tricky. And I think this is where Torbjörn's suggestion that, when North and South work together, because you've had a lot of experience in terms of implementing this, we get more projects off the ground to show that it's not necessarily going to reduce government revenues through the traditional telecom media operators. I think then we have a chance at deploying this innovation, especially as far as it helps in addressing the issue of affordability and therefore accessibility. The second issue that I wanted to raise around innovation is the point about direct and indirect access to the internet. All right, we have very low internet usage in Africa, and I don't want to use Africa as an example of developing countries. I saw a tweet about that kind of thing. But so speaking about what I know, if I'm able to get information from the internet, but via a community radio program or via SMS, isn't that what I wanted to do in the first place? Get that information, all right? So I think it is true that there are people who will be able to get access directly, but we can also look at innovative models that use a multitude of ICTs to foster the interaction back and forth from the internet. And this will address not only the access question itself, but other issues as well. We do a lot of work with women, issues around illiteracy, issues around the fact that most of the information we may choose to access on the internet, as far as Uganda, most of it will be in English, all right? So you can address issues of that. You can address issues of where is broadband access, in which parts of the country is there broadband access, and therefore they can see a lot more, access a lot more, versus which parts don't have broadband access. And so I think we need to also be looking at the innovation around direct and indirect access to the internet, raising the bar around this. And then thirdly, what I want to say, and I've been trying to say this since yesterday, but now that I have the floor, I will say this.
Get it on.
And I'm sorry. I think it's very important, and I really do appreciate, this is the second time I'm coming to SIF, the Stockholm Internet Forum, and even though we have very low internet usage, I think it's very important that we are brought, and we are very many from Uganda and other developing countries, that we get to understand the issues around internet freedom. Because I think one of the tweets was very pointed on this, and I think the panelists yesterday. If we are getting an internet access that is already closed up in terms of our freedoms to participate and be whom we want and worship as we wish and have the expression that we need, do we still want to have that internet access? So I think the opportunity of having us out here is so that we can appreciate the various issues that are at stake here. And when we get what seems like the freebies, Facebook, is free on our phones and everything, well, what should we be worrying about in terms of that free book, Facebook access? What should we be worrying about when different companies, I don't want to name names, make their products freely available to us because we can't afford to pay for the the main version. What are all these issues as we bring the technology into our countries, or as we develop our own technologies? What should we be worrying about in terms of internet freedom for global development? Thank you.
Really great points and questions. And it really kind of raises, I think, this issue is that if you're able to start, I mean, nobody's starting with a totally blank slate, right? But if you're able to sort of get it right from the beginning, you know, what does that look like? Or relatively early on, what are the lessons and recommendations for how to get it right if you have sort of a will both on the government and civil society side to really avoid mistakes and problems that other people have gone through. You've been wanting to talk.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And Dorothy, first, thanks for raising this point about the diversity of the ICTs again. I think it's, the mobiles have really enabled combinations in a completely different way than it was in the past. Now, community radios, they can receive calls from listeners, and the answers can be broadcast to everyone that is listening and so on. But I think what is important here when we look at where we're going from here, if we want to promote innovation, for instance, in the software area, is that we don't just jump into the sort of the micro solutions here and there, that we try to see this more like an ecosystem, or we have called it a national software system approach, where you try to start out by trying to understand where we are right now in each country, and it will differ from case to case, and try to map out where are the opportunities and where are the key bottlenecks in this area. And they may be found in many different areas. It could be the infrastructure issues that are unaffordable broadband connectivity. It could be lack of skills coming out, or the inappropriate skills coming out of universities in the computer science field. It could be the question of inability to get payment online if you're producing software and you want to sell your services over this online platform, but PayPal is not allowed. That's one example. That could be a problem. It could be that you lack these kind of clusters like the tech hubs, but the tech hubs on their own cannot do the trick. They need to be part of this ecosystem. You need to understand the supply side and the demand side, so that you bring all these different stakeholders together, the developer community, the IT association, the government people, and the education institutions, and try to map up some kind of a strategy for that country. I think all the countries that have succeeded in the software field, be it in the United States, or be it in India or Israel or wherever, they have started out from developing a clear strategy where they want to go, and try to identify how can policies make a difference, and what role can the private sector and other stakeholders play. So seeing this in a more ecosystem way, I think it's very important to start.
Maja?
Well, infoDev works with entrepreneurs, so maybe I can just make a couple of points about the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Very much agree with everything you have said. For us, investing in local entrepreneurship talent means doing it through supporting strong education, both tertiary formal education, but also professional and technical courses for developers and entrepreneurs who have graduated or are just not any longer in school. Mentoring, so providing incentives for experienced, successful local or international entrepreneurs to work with the new entrepreneurs to solve problems at each step of the business development process. And also showcasing, I think Lukonga mentioned this, showcasing successful entrepreneurs and mentors through mainstream local media. It's very important as inspiration, and also as cultural proof that entrepreneurship and self-employment is a legitimate choice for people. And then it's also about assistance with access to finance. So for a government, it might mean, or even an entrepreneurial community, setting up a co-investment scheme that will attract angel or other early-stage investors and help them evaluate local companies. And this could include social entrepreneurship and attracting investors who are interested in development-oriented businesses. And then basic business support through tech hubs and business incubators. So this means providing subsidized office space, legal, accounting, HR services, testing equipment, different mobile phones, for example, if we're talking about mobile applications, and then reliable, free, open internet, electricity, of course, and coffee, and all in a location that's easily accessible by the entrepreneurs.
We have someone here.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Chris Obore from the country of mountain gorillas. That is Uganda.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
If you want to
we
see
have a lot of
gorillas,
people
you're
from
welcome
Uganda.
there. But I'm speaking from, again, the journalistic point of view, that I think it's consensus that internet is a good thing. That's not debatable. However, there's a departure on at what level we are discussing. Since yesterday, I noticed Sweden is discussing it is freedom. And yet for me, I'm even trying to make it known to people in Uganda what internet is. So I'm discussing with the people at a different level. Back home, I have to tell the people internet is A, B, C, D. I can't go and tell them that when you're on internet, you deserve freedom. That should be a second phase. In other words, we are trying to make a toddler move at the same pace with a teenager. You can see the difference. This toddler has to be a super toddler to work with the teenager. I am seated here, I'm seeing clean water, a lake. I do have a lake in Uganda, but it's turning green. The water is green because the lake has not been taken care of. So the first point is we will need to improve the governance. Until internet begins to determine the politics in my country, internet will have no value. So are we trying to help us make internet a tool in improving governance? It can only do so, I maintain, when it is available to the people who will use it to influence the governance. Right. It is not available to most people. So I'm only discussing its freedom in relation to Swedish, who access it. I have free internet access here. I wouldn't have it in Kampala. So I am with you, but communicating. So what is important is to have this thing in Kampala. And the Western democracies should harmonize the message they send to Africa. Yesterday, someone talked about Obama and the whistleblowers policy. By saying that, while America can overcome that easily, he arms the African poor leaders that look, even in America, the mother of democracy, we still have laws to stop people from freely expressing themselves. By the time America wakes up to say it is important to have freedom, it has already moved the developed world backward several times. So we need to have a clear message. What is the Western world's message to the developing world? Are you going to provide this as a development intervention? Or you are going to discuss with us as partners? And if we are partners, what is our stakeholding in this? So what is our stakeholding in this partnership? Then you keep telling us that we are partners. What are my shares? How do I gain from it? And then the other thing, the Western world should be careful with African statistics. So Africa now, telecom industry is booming in Africa. You do not know that actually in Uganda, one person has got 6 different SIM cards. And you capture all the 6 SIM cards to mean a number of people who have phones. It is one man having different SIM cards, trying to look for a cheaper communication means. What are the statistics you'll have here? This is the number of telecom subscribers in Africa, which is totally wrong. Yeah. Can you domesticate some of your statistics? How do you get them? Again, be careful with some of us who are African experts, even when you are black. We are only Africans because of our color and our origin, but we are like Swedish in our outlook because we not even lived in Africa. So we are discussing Africa from your point of view. And then you call Chris Obore as expert in Ugandan affairs. I was last in Uganda 10 years ago. I make phone calls home. There are areas in my country, if you went with a mobile phone, they will think you're a witch doctor. Come on, what is this? Because one, the water they drink is from a dirty stream. They have no clothing. They don't have it. A hospital to them is a luxury. Then you are saying, we need to put Africa on the global internet freedom. What are you saying? What are you saying? So can this conference find a way to put Africa at the same level? It's very difficult. This, to me, is what concerns me. Until internet provides to me in Uganda that it can enable us to mobilize, to demand good governance from our leadership, so that they become as responsive as the Swedish leadership. I was told that the Swedish tax agency is the most respected. In Uganda, a tax agency is a terror.
Yeah.
People run away from it. But there is internet. People don't access it. So there are certain aspects of development that we need to contextualize, so that when we meet in a forum like this, we begin to understand each other.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. How to address these issues as partners.
I'm going to speak to you as an individual. Pretend there is no one else in this room. I'm not an African expert, I'm an African. And I said, I'm not migrating. I live in Côte d'Ivoire, and we used to be like any other African country. But then, after 10 years of no elections, an election was coming up. And about 5 of us sat together and said, what can we do with the internet to mobilize citizens for these elections? Because after 10 years, it means that there's a huge percentage of young people who did not vote 10 years ago. Those people who were 10 years ago are now 20. They don't even know how to vote. They don't know how to register. So we started using chats, Twitter, SMS messages to accompany the government. Listen closely. In telling our younger folks how to register, how to keep your voter's card, how do you prepare on the day of election, how do you queue up. You know, we send tips like take a book, take an umbrella, take a chair, get your meal, just in case the queues are very long. We put these things on Twitter. We had Twitter conferences about these, and people were grateful that ICT could serve them as a 19-year. People discovered Twitter because of Côte d'Ivoire elections. Now, during the day of elections, we started talking to people. Go around with your camera, your phone can take a picture, you must stand while they count your votes, you must let us know if anything is happening. Now, ICT becomes a tool for democracy. You begin to inform people, I'm at this place, everything is okay. I'm at this place, there is a bit of a fight. I'm at this place, the voting office is 2 hours late. And the police came and said, thank you for helping us. It's raining, there's an accident, there's something. People reported. And then I'm talking about Côte d'Ivoire. If you remember, after the elections, there was problems. And we finally ended up in war. And we told ourselves, we've already built a network of concerned citizens. We need to keep this up. At the time, even transport was down, and in Côte d'Ivoire, there was curfew at midday. And so I myself, for some other reasons, I had to go to Ghana and put up a call center. Just give us a missed call, and we'll call you back in Côte d'Ivoire. Where are you? What is your problem? Do you need food? Are you hurt? And then we call a doctor, and we put you on a call conference. We had a woman who was to give birth, and there was no car to take her to a clinic. And so we call we call the husband, and we call a doctor, we put them on a phone conference. And the doctor is saying, how is she feeling? This is what you do, this is what you do. And the man had to help the woman deliver the baby at home while holding on to his phone. And this baby is called the e-baby in Côte d'Ivoire. This is what we use cell phones and conferencing tools to do. It has nothing to do with government and data streams. And after that, the government came and said, thank you, you internet people, for helping us. And so we have the president of the National Assembly who is on Twitter. We have the president himself who comes once in a while. And now in Cote d'Ivoire, if there is a big assembly session, a Congress session, the head of the National Assembly asks us to send questions through Twitter or through his blog. And when anyone of anything is speaking, they say, and we greet you, internet people. And so there is internet people now known in Cote d'Ivoire. No wonder this year we are hosting the West Africa Internet Governance in Cote d'Ivoire. And guess what the theme is? Internet governance for peace. Now I want to ask you some questions. What are Ugandans willing to do with the small internet connection that you have? Before you talk to Swedish people and Americans, what are you doing for your own self with what you have that is not political?
Thank you. Quickly, yeah.
Just a quick one as well. We of course see that as an opportunity. The challenge is Africa and many African countries are not telling their own stories. We are not out there telling the world about what is going on in our own countries, and we need to step up and simply talk, you know. And one aspect is research. There's not enough data coming out of Africa. You will see, for example, at iHub and CC Hub, iHub in Kenya, CC Hub in Nigeria, they have set up research divisions within tech hubs, and these now generate local data so that there's no distortion and people within countries understand what the local market is like in terms of ICTs. So there's a step, I think, that other institutions are taking to generate the right data about Africa. So it is a challenge, but some people, some of us are seeing it as an opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you. We're running low on time, and we have a lot of questions, and someone's been waiting very patiently over here.
Thank you very much. My name is Ruth Aine. I come from Uganda. My question is going to the people. Yes, sorry, with so many Ugandans in this place. I want to ask the people that have dealt with tech hubs and startups. One of the things that I have seen as I cover events with the startups and tech hubs in my country is very many applications are developed. Very many needs are met with these applications, but majority of them are not relevant. And the relevance in the sense that we need to see these applications viable in the rural areas as well as in the urban areas, but also make business sense. And sometimes you have Android developers camp for they usually call them 48-hour hackathons and stuff like that, or your business startup weekend. And very many youths will respond to these things, and they will be there to, put their ideas onto paper and, work together and develop, applications. But then again, they don't make business sense. So they win about, let's say, $1,000 at the end of the weekend, and they have rent for a year in, a certain startup area, business startup area, and that's about it. After that 1 year, we never hear about them again, and yet these are very, very good innovations. How can we equip our people, especially the youth, to have them, think business-like, but also think 12, 10 years down the road, and not just 2 years down the road, or to just win a competition? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to collect a few others, preferably from people who are from countries other than Uganda. Not to discriminate against Uganda, but we've had quite a representation from Uganda. So we have someone over here.
Yeah, good afternoon. I come from Asia, the other part of the world, but we're very similar to our friends in Africa in some of the problems we face. I'm very confused. I'm a journalist. But when we write this story, actually, I think for this session, the operative word is inclusive growth. Although we are celebrating here innovations in technology, and that's all very good, with all due respect to the people who have developed very innovative and very localized, very good content-hinged applications. But my problem is, I think sometimes we miss the real premises of what internet freedom is for. mean, my colleague, who's a journalist also, was pointing to what is the story about? Who are the accountable parties? What do we want government to do in the area of freedom? And what exactly should that freedom deliver our people? Because in our part of the world, we have journalists getting killed for just speaking out. We have right to speak, and someone was blogging right to speak, but not right after speech, but not the right to know. We have campaigns for access to information because we think this freedom should enable right to life, right to health, right to education, not necessarily just online rights, but on-ground rights. The other point I want to look at is when companies actually come in, and this was a repeat theme in many of the sessions, what are we exactly looking at? Without discounting any good intentions of companies to come in with CSR or really good purposes, the bottom line is always, I think, in our faces. And wherever you are in the world, big companies, the mammoth companies of the internet world, they push products in the developing world. And what are we supposed to do with that? Interpret it as goodwill or unadulterated good intentions? So what I'm saying in short is, what exactly do we want government? What should we call out government on in terms of that freedom of the internet that should give us, operative word, inclusive growth? And when we look at companies actually substituting for government for some of the privacy issues, surveillance operations, shouldn't we also demand transparency and accountability from private sector? That they come in with clean hands when they say that, well, we have to do this because government has requested us, or we also want human rights and internet freedom. And finally, for the citizens, I think we should try to actually bridge the two worlds more and more, online and on ground, because that's where the reality check could probably come in to celebrate. I've migrated from old media to new media. We do work in the PCIJ, the Center for Investigative Journalism, and face community journalists whose very real problem is there are warlords everywhere. They could kill you if you even dare ask questions. Our netizens are having the same problems. Criminal libel is still a reality in our part of the world. Just today, 3 Malaysian opposition leaders were arrested. Well, 2 opposition leaders and 1 other student activist charged with sedition. So that's very real. So in short, let's celebrate the small successes, but keep our eye on the ball. What is that inclusive growth? What is that freedom about? What should we call out our governments on, whether we're from Asia or Africa or Latin America or Cuba? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really important question on basic governance and rights and how that connects to. Since we're running very low on time, we're going to take one more from the back, and then we'll kind of have everybody respond to kind of all that we've heard.
Hi. Firstly, I'd like to categorically state that I'm not from Uganda. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I thought maybe Southern Africa should also get a voice. In Zimbabwe, we've got a growing, burgeoning new media community, and I'm very interested to hear about what's happening with tech hubs in Africa, because in Zimbabwe, we still don't have any tech hubs. So I'd like to hear actually a bit more about what has gone into building the specific tech hub that you were talking about, and what actual tangible developments you see having come from there, you know, what apps or software that you feel have emerged from there and that have somehow contributed to opening up the society towards contributing towards development and democracy, like the comrade from Uganda was asking. I'd be very interested to hear. Thanks.
Thank you. So that first comment and this last one here sort of connected in terms of not only how do you kind of put together tech hubs and places of innovation, but how do you make sure that the applications actually are sustainable, have business relevance, have some way of continuing after they've used their prize money for innovation or whatever it is, and that whole issue of sustainability. And then the other very weighty, important question of online digital innovation, well and good, but how does that connect to fundamental issues of governance and rights that span both online and off, that if we don't get them right, it becomes hard to really make the technology serve its purpose for everyone. So shall we start with the more practical question and then go to the broader one of governance to close out? Who would like to start?
All right, talking about tech hubs, I'll start by saying that most of the kids in Zambia, in Africa, don't grow up with having a friend's dad who just made $1 billion out of selling a startup. Their role models are teachers and nurses. And the challenge then is changing mindsets of our entrepreneurs, for them to start thinking of making or starting businesses and making profitable, sustainable businesses. That's a big challenge. It doesn't happen overnight. And some of the strategies, like having hackathons, is really just to catalyze that mindset, to get people to try and fail. $1,000 or $2,000 is just motivation for them to at least get something out of their effort. But hackathons and products of hackathons should not be used to judge the state of tech hubs. I think it's just one or two strategies that are used, that are being used a lot to get people to thinking innovatively and also to get them to start prototyping. I think that's one of the reasons why there's been a number of competitions. Our own experience is that people are not motivated, are not were not confident enough to participate in competitions because they didn't think that they had the same skills or the same technology that is there maybe in San Francisco or Silicon Valley. So what we are doing is really changing mindsets. And if you consider that most tech hubs have been around for 2 to 3 years, yeah, it's not much time. We are all learning. Our funders are learning. They don't even have metrics to try to really benchmarks. They don't have metrics to check what success factors or how we will become successful as hubs. Yes, there are startups, there are ideas coming from, there are apps, there are businesses coming out, but really to be very open about the challenges that we are facing as tech hubs. We are not at this stage making $50 million businesses or even $1 billion businesses. It's going to take time. And we have to be patient, but we have to be doing. We have to be trying. We have to be training people. We have to be getting them to try and fail. And over time, you will get bigger results. But at this stage, really, it's just when you walk into a tech hub or you meet people in these tech communities, people are optimistic. 2-3 years ago, they didn't think they could do anything. But 2-3 years down the line, people are optimistic. People are at least trying. People are attempting to do crazy stuff and also to make money. In the case of Zimbabwe, I had 2 weeks ago I was in Zimbabwe actually, and there are 3 funders who want to fund the tech hub there. The challenge is that they can't find people who are motivated enough. There are like 5 to 10 people that want to start a tech hub, but there are a couple of issues that have to be sorted out there. But just to say that funders are interested in funding tech hubs, even in Zimbabwe, and there's an open call actually, so you can get funding. I think it's a 3-year fund that's available to start a tech hub in Zimbabwe. So definitely things are happening in Zimbabwe. Some of the projects that have come from BongoHive, we worked on an elections project, collaborated with people from Kenya, SwordNet in particular, and also Ushahidi. So 2 years ago, we worked on an elections project. And also, we helped the government in mapping. There was an army worms invasion in the country, and we helped them with the mapping project. So certainly things that we do with government as well. It's not just creating an app that will make you millions, but it's about really sorting out some of the challenges that you have, whether it's government, civil society, or just individuals. So certainly there are a lot of things that we do as tech hubs, and we shouldn't be seen as just geek spaces only. Yeah.
Great. So we really only have 1 minute left. Who wants to tackle the big sort of governance issue?
I would like to close with a line. I've been an open source advocate. I've been a human rights. I'm a legally trained international relations and law person, by the way. I've been on the forefront of international relations, and then I've started a business, and I also work as a policy advisor to governments. So it makes me a crazy kind of person because I can change hearts very easily. But I want to say something, and I would like us to take this home. Technology is one thing. The internet, the standards, the IP protocols, internet forum, access, affordability. Technology is one thing. Business is the other thing. How does it come into development? How do people earn a living with it? How can we ensure sustainability? How can I, as a young African woman, be empowered by technology? How can I, as an infotechpreneur, make my money? How can I be the next XYZ who makes millions and invest? How do I attract investment into my business? How do I bring money into the country? That is business. So technology is one thing, and business is the other thing. But advocacy is another thing. Technology is one thing, and business is the other thing, but advocacy is another. If you want to go into advocacy, that may spoil your business. Advocacy is when you face people up front and tell them to fuck off. That's advocacy. You get up to people, you write text, you say your mind, you say what is truth, you live for humanity, and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you go to jail, and you may die there. That's advocacy. You live for what you believe. Passion. You're a global hero. Blah, blah, blah. That is when the media talks about your story. That's advocacy. But remember, technology is one thing, and business is the other thing, but advocacy is an entirely different thing. So think through and choose wisely, and God bless you.
That's quite a final comment. Any other comments from the panel? Yeah.
I'll just say very briefly, I think the most innovative, transformative, disruptive elements in new technology, digital technologies, are going to do one of two things. They'll either lower transaction costs, right, of payments, personal communications, of communication writ large, or they'll disintermediate. They'll remove the middleman from a number of different places. Credit card transactions, ISPs, telcos, distributors of music or video, all of the Facebooks, Googles, Microsofts, and software as a service vendors. The best technology on the planet, the ones that will actually bring more people into a more participatory, democratic digital space, will do that. Lower transaction costs or disintermediate people that are extracting resources from individuals.
And
final word from the United Nations?
maybe just one word on this question about inclusive development and how to avoid being completely taken over by the big multinational companies. Then we have to put more focus on developing the indigenous capabilities in all countries, really. If you don't have that, you're confined to relying on imported stuff, whether it's services or goods or whatever. So greater focus on building these indigenous capabilities is definitely essential.
On that note, it's time for lunch. Thank you very much for a really provocative panel. I've learned a lot from both the panelists and the people who spoke, and look forward to having more conversations over our food. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to point out to you that lunch is served in two places. You have it in the cafe and the exhibition area. So if the queue is too